Thank you. You talked a lot about marketing and creative teams using AI. Are there other parts of a business where AI can have a positive impact? Sure, I can tackle that one. In our work, as I mentioned earlier, we get to collaborate with lots of different brands. And often we begin working with a brand through their marketing team. But quite commonly, we'll actually see Lumen5 adoption across many other departments. Some of those examples are learning and development. Learning and development tends to be a separate department from the marketing team. Usually, those teams aim to educate or inform, or whether it's coursework or whatever it may be, or how to guide writing. Video tends to be a really great medium for communicating that type of information. It's much more engaging than a written guide. Another thing I see are HR. HR teams really adopting Lumen5 as part of culture building and brand building, especially if there's a recruitment program and they want to share with the larger world what it's like working at their company. You could write a job post where you describe the culture, but often a video just really goes a long way to telling people what you're all about, what it feels like to work in a given company. Another thing that I've seen is publishing. I think publishing is quite interesting because it's it's very similar to content marketing. In content marketing, we write a lot of news stories and content that aims at not just entertainment but also education. And I've seen a lot of publishing organizations use video at scale to be able to tell these hundreds of stories that are coming out on a monthly basis. Definitely any area where there's a high throughput, and again, whether it's publishing or learning and development or HR, it's a high throughput of messaging that's going out there. And I think that's where AI tools can really shine. Here's another question. How do you balance AI automation with the need for hands-on creative work? Where do you personally draw the line between what AI should handle and what should stay purely human-led?
I think that it's a really great question. And I think it's something every creative team has to navigate when adopting AI for the first time. In my experience, I usually draw the line where creative work needs human intuition, where it's not just about execution, but about making the right creative call. I think AI is great at speeding up a lot of those redundant tasks like formatting, resizing, generating variations, but it doesn't understand the nuances that make design, branding, and storytelling feel intentional. For example, AI can generate layouts, but it won't recognize when a design feels too cluttered, when it needs more negative space or some breathing room, or when you need to do some kerning for your typography. And even if has all the right layout, optical judgment sometimes is what AI lacks. It follows the rules, but it doesn't see like the way humans do. So there's also cultural nuances. I think that AI might suggest, for example, black as a premium color because it often represents luxury. But in other cultures, it might symbolize loss or mourning. So it won't instinctively know when the color choice could send the wrong message. And this is also very visible in video creation. For example, AI can automate cuts and transition, but it won't really understand pacing and the way a human editor does. So it can't feel when a scene needs that extra beat for emotional impact, or when a cut should linger for a bit longer for that tension or conflict, or when an animation needs to ease in a little bit more smoothly. So I think that's where creative intuition steps in. Also, the reason why AI is a tool, not a decision maker. It does the heavy lifting, but the final creative judgment, all those things that makes your work feel right, that's all on you. That's all human.
How does Lumen5 incorporate AI into their creative process when designing custom brand environments? Again, I can kick off with some bits of that, and I'll pass it off to Joel. We incorporate AI into a lot of different things that we do. So first and foremost, the creation experience itself is very much AI driven, from the script composer to the AI voiceover, the media matching that just finds all the right visuals for the appropriate story that you're telling. And that forms the basis of how stories are told on Lumen5. Now, custom branded environments are kind of like a sandbox, which is our way of saying, okay, it's not enough to just tell an accurate story. We have to tell a story in a brand accurate way. And so there's two layers of it. There's how do we tell a good story, that's succinct and relative to what you want? And then how do we tell it in your unique way?
At Lumen5, AI isn't just all about automation. And like what I mentioned, that it's scaling creativity while keeping brand integrity intact. I guess when designing custom brand environments, our creative process is very still much human led. So the core decisions, all of those typography, motion composition is in coordination with our clients, with the other creative teams, and how a brand translates into videos are all crafted by both creative teams. And we incorporate AI to just streamline the production and ensure brand consistency at scale. For example, once we've designed the brand's unique motion identity, AI helps apply that consistently across different video content formats. So it can automate those repetitive tasks, those adjusting the layouts and adapting all of those aspect ratios and maintaining animation styles. So your team doesn't have to manually tweak every version. And AI also assists in the content adaptation, like transforming long form articles into your structured video narratives. So it suggests all the highlight key messaging and your script generation. So while AI helps with efficiency and scalability, the strategic and creative direction is entirely driven by our creative team. And it's not about AI to enhance the creative process again, and it's not replacing it.
We often want to implement AI tools, but there are stakeholders who have concerns about implementing AI tools. What would you say to those stakeholders to get their buy-in? One thing that I've noticed is that education and information goes a long way. So take, for example, AI tools is such a large, massive umbrella term that unless we're able to categorize and bucket and define, okay, what kind of AI tools are you worried about? What kind of AI tools have you read about or heard about? And make sure that those preconceptions of AI is brought to the table and then have a structured conversation around it. So take, for example, I think most of you can agree and probably have seen tools like OpenAI Sora. Sora is a text to video tool that allows you to type in a prompt like create an aquarium of origami paperfish. And then it makes a fascinating artistic vision of what that looks like. But that is oftentimes um, not applicable or not useful for business communications. When I think about business communications and corporate communications, it's very precise communication. We're trying to say something specific. We need a lot of control over what needs to be said. And I think that divides the two worlds of AI tools as we know it today. One is the raw AI. I see it as a raw resource. And then there are applied AI platforms like Lumen5, where we're not creating crazy next generation foundational models. We use the raw resource, the AI technology that companies like OpenAI are developing, and we're more of a refinery. We're an aggregator of AI technologies, and what we do is specialize in designing a framework with guardrails. And I think guardrails is the key word here. Our full-time job at Lumen5 is to take what's happening at the forefront of AI and building guardrails around it, because that's not what OpenAI is focused on. What we're focused on is what's your brand requirement? How do you communicate? Whether it's colors, text, fonts, or just vibe, tone, pacing. How do we build those guardrails so that when AI goes in to do its work, it can perform in the context of what you need most? And so going back to the question of concerns around implementing AI tools, I think guardrails really is the key here, is if you approach these stakeholders without any mentions of guardrails. Of course, there'd be concerns. Of course, you should be concerned too if you're using an AI tool without guardrails. But I think that's why people choose applied AI platforms, whether it's Lumen5 or other tools for other use cases. The guardrails are the purpose of the platforms. We exist because we can deliver guardrails so that companies can make use of AI while minimizing the risks. And there's lots of examples I can go into with specifically how that is. And again, it's not video specific. Any AI tool you're looking to implement, it's important to understand what platforms offer the guardrails that makes you feel at ease, that addresses your concerns. And in the context of Lumen5, a lot of that comes to the content and the brand and how content fits into that brand. Okay, we've heard from the creative, moving on to marketeers. And what about the viewer? Personally, I've seen very little AI content that I found interesting, touching, or any of the other emotions that great content can evoke. So I'll tackle this and then I'll pass it off to Joel. And this is fascinating to me, which is, again, goes back to, well, what is AI content? Is AI content purely AI generated? or is AI assisted, making a creative professional hyper productive? Is that AI content? And so hopefully you got a glimpse into our perspective of that. We are not believers of pure AI generated content. And I agree with you that a lot of pure AI generated content tends to be slop for a lot of the reasons that Joel described. It lacks the spirit and the soul. And our belief is that by arming our creative professionals and our marketers, who are often also creative professionals, with AI tools, they can execute on their vision so much more accurately. And what I mean by that is your marketer might have a grand vision for how to tell a certain story or evoke a certain emotion, but they might not have the technical skills or time, or there's just other resource constraints that makes it so that that vision is never realized. And I think what AI tools allow those creative individuals to do is to have that vision and execute upon it, and therefore creating potentially better content than they would otherwise. So once again, I'm with you in that pure AI generated content often really isn't the way to go. That's not something that we champion either. We here are believers of AI tools that can enhance human creativity, not to replace it. Joel, what do you think?
Well, I share the same opinion on that one, Mike. I personally see that I I personally see that content. I guess you need to be careful to show that it's still human led. I think the trick is you use AI to really enhance your content, but to show that it's purely generated by AI, I think that's you're being lazy. You know, you don't really put a lot of thought into it, and I think that's where other content that I'm seeing right now, that I know that it's created probably by AI, but they've tweaked it in such a way that it complements the message, it complements the branding, and I think that's the way to go in case that you really want to use AI as a tool. Again, you don't have to uh, generate the term AI slop, so that you can have a lot of content out there that nobody would really listen. You have to create meaningful and impactful content that derives your message using AI.